What if I told you that one of the most cherished institutions in America, the college system, is not the golden ticket to success you've been promised, but instead one of the greatest scams of our time? Imagine spending 4 years of your life and hundreds of thousands of dollars, only to walk away with debt, disillusionment, and very few real skills. That's the bold case Charlie Kirk makes in his book, The College Scam. And in today's video, we're going to take a deep dive into this explosive book, chapter by chapter, and uncover how America's universities may actually be bankrupting, brainwashing, and robbing away the future of our youth. By the end, you'll be the jury, and you'll have to decide, is college worth it anymore? Charlie Kirk begins with his personal story. He was expected to go to college, just like everyone else, but when he didn't get into West Point and later chose not to attend Baylor, his life took a completely different turn. Instead of piling on debt, he started turning Point USA, a youth organization that grew into a massive national movement. From this vantage point, Kirk argues that college is more than just a bad investment. It's a scam designed to trap young Americans in debt and indoctrination. He lays out a 10-count indictment of the college system, promising to present evidence for each count and letting readers, or in this case, you decide. Chapter 1. The game is rigged against you. The first count in Kirk's indictment is direct and provocative. Colleges and universities are running a scam. He explains that the supposed pathway from high school to college to a successful career is built on illusions that no longer hold true. Students are funneled into this system with the promise that a degree equals opportunity, but for many, it results in wasted years and crushing debt. The graduation rate itself is damning. Nearly 40% of students never finish their degree, yet many of them still carry the financial burden for years or even decades. Kirk uses the story of Sarah Rose Atman as a prime example. She admitted that while she did learn a few useful skills from 2 professors, the rest of her college experience was a blur of cramming and forgetting. She concluded it was a colossal waste of time. What she calls her slip of paper, the diploma, didn't hold much weight with employers. Even recruiters admitted GPAs and cover letters were rarely taken seriously. Her friends fared no better. An acting major working in finance, an economics major now a yoga instructor. Their degrees offered little direction. Kirk argues that this isn't just about wasted time. It's about a toxic system that damages young people at a personal level. Beyond the financial trap, he claims college fosters a destructive social environment filled with elitism, irresponsible behavior, and declining mental health. Depression, substance abuse, and even sexual violence thrive in this culture. Instead of shaping strong and capable adults, colleges often leave students weaker, more disoriented, and less prepared for the real world. The core of Kirk's argument is this: the system is rigged. Students take on massive loans, grind through classes, receive a diploma, and then spend decades paying off the debt, often for careers that don't even require a degree. And yet, society still pressures young people to follow this path. His challenge is to flip the question, not where should I go to college, but why should I go at all? Chapter 2. The obscene cost of a diploma. In the second count, Kirk drills into the economics of higher education. A college degree, he argues, has become absurdly overpriced. Tuition and fees have grown at many times the rate of inflation, and most families can't possibly pay up front. The result? Student loan debt that is nearly impossible to escape. He emphasizes how bankruptcy laws make student loans one of the few debts that follow you for life. Unlike credit card bills or even gambling debts, student loans can rarely be discharged. The stories he presents are shocking. Families in their 60s and 70s still carrying loans, their Social Security checks garnished. Graduates with 6-figure debt struggling in low-paying jobs. Columbia University Film School students leaving with $200,000 to $300,000 in debt, only to make less than $30,000 annually. These aren't isolated cases. They reveal a structural crisis. Kirk contends that the entire system, from federal loan programs to university administrators, is designed to keep money flowing. Politicians, lenders, and schools all benefit, while students pay the price. He argues that the government's willingness to guarantee loans has allowed universities to hike tuition unchecked. Instead of competition lowering costs, the abundance of easy loan money fuels endless inflation. Ultimately, Kirk paints a bleak picture, an overpriced credential financed by debt slavery, leaving millions of Americans unable to buy homes, start families, or build wealth. The cost of a diploma has become one of the greatest financial traps of our time. Chapter 3. Where does all the money go? In the third count, Kirk follows the money trail to reveal what universities actually do with their enormous revenue. Far from struggling institutions, he argues, many universities resemble massive corporations or even hedge funds with classrooms attached. They hoard gigantic endowments, sometimes in the tens of billions of dollars, while still raising tuition every year. Where does the money flow? Into administrative bloat, luxury facilities, and ever-growing bureaucracies. He highlights the rise of positions like Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, roles that cost millions collectively but add no educational value. Universities invest heavily in real estate, sports complexes, and branding, all while claiming they need more money to improve education. Kirk insists that the beneficiaries of this system aren't students, but the universities themselves. They exploit taxpayer dollars and student loans to build financial empires, leaving families to foot the bill. By framing colleges as profit-driven machines rather than educational institutions, he sets up the case that this is not just inefficiency, but outright exploitation. Chapter 4. Colleges don't educate anymore. This chapter tackles what Kirk considers the heart of the scam, the failure of universities to provide genuine education. He argues that most students graduate without gaining measurable improvements in reasoning, problem-solving, or critical thinking. He cites studies showing that after 4 years of classes, many students show no significant intellectual growth. Employers echo this concern, often complaining that graduates lack basic job readiness. Instead of rigorous education, Kirk suggests that students are funneled through watered-down curricula, checking boxes rather than building minds. Degrees are handed out, but the value behind them has eroded. When asked whether graduates are actually better thinkers or more capable citizens, the evidence suggests otherwise. For Kirk, this is not just a personal disappointment, but a cultural crisis. The very purpose of higher education, forming leaders, thinkers, and innovators, has been abandoned. Instead, universities now mass-produce diplomas with little regard for intellectual development. Chapter 5. The Lunacy of College. Kirk argues that the decline in education isn't accidental. It's replaced by lunacy. He points to absurd classes offered at many universities where ideology often masquerades as scholarship. Courses centered on niche social theories, obscure activist-driven perspectives, or even outright bizarre topics dominate catalogs. To him, these don't cultivate rationality, but instead push students further from common sense. Beyond classes, he claims campus culture encourages irrationality. Students are taught to prioritize feelings over facts, activism over analysis, and identity politics over objective truth. Instead of sharpening reason, colleges dull it, producing graduates more vulnerable to ideological capture than independent thought. This chapter paints a troubling picture. Universities no longer simply fail at educating. They actively uneducate, replacing reason with ideology. Chapter 6. How they try to shut us up. If universities fail at education, Kirk argues, they succeed at one thing: silencing dissent. The sixth count charges colleges with indoctrination and repression. He claims free thought has been replaced with enforced conformity. Speech codes dictate what can and cannot be said. Conservative students, in particular, face harassment, grade discrimination, or outright threats. Radical professors reward activism with extra credit, while punishing dissenters with failing marks. Cancel culture on campus is another powerful weapon. Students learn quickly that expressing certain views risks social ostracism, threats, or worse. Instead of being environments where ideas clash and sharpen, campuses have become echo chambers. Kirk argues that this is intentional. Universities don't want to broaden minds, but to mold them into a single ideological mold. He concludes this section by warning that a generation is being trained not to think independently, but to conform or face consequences. The very spirit of higher education, which once championed free inquiry, is now suffocated under ideological control. Chapter 7, Violence and Hate on Campus. In this chapter, Kirk takes a sobering turn. He argues that universities have become breeding grounds not only for intolerance, but also for outright hostility and violence. Conservative and pro-America students, he says, are routinely harassed, shouted down, and even assaulted for daring to share their views. Peaceful events are disrupted, speakers are threatened, and in some cases, students are attacked. Kirk shares numerous stories of intimidation. Conservative students having their signs torn apart, lecture halls stormed by protesters, and administrators doing little or nothing to protect freedom of speech. What shocks him most is not only the violent behavior itself, but the way universities often tolerate or even excuse it. Instead of protecting victims, administrations sometimes side with radical agitators, allowing intimidation to go unpunished. For Kirk, this proves that colleges are no longer safe spaces for open dialogue. They are arenas where mob rule often silences dissent. He argues that this culture of hostility trains young people to embrace aggression over debate. Instead of learning to exchange ideas respectfully, students are conditioned to treat disagreement as an attack. The ripple effects, he warns, are dangerous for society at large. When graduates carry this mindset into politics, business, and culture, civility collapses and polarization deepens. Chapter 8, Foreign Influence on Campus. Kirk now raises alarms about what he sees as a more insidious threat: the infiltration of American campuses by foreign groups. He focuses on two areas in particular. First, he highlights the spread of anti-Israel and anti-Semitic groups like Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace, which he argues promote hostility toward Jewish students and undermine support for America's ally in the Middle East. Second, and perhaps more alarming, is the influence of China through Confucius Institutes and other academic partnerships. According to Kirk, these institutes function less as cultural exchange programs and more as vehicles for Chinese Communist Party propaganda. He contends that they give China direct access to American institutions, intellectual property, and even future leaders. The combination, he argues, threatens not just academic integrity, but national security. This chapter paints a picture of universities as vulnerable institutions, too willing to take foreign money and influence without considering the long-term consequences. Kirk concludes that higher education, once a bulwark of Western values, has become a soft target for adversaries who seek to undermine America from within. Chapter 9, Woke and Weaponized. Here, Kirk connects the dots between campus culture and broader social movements. He argues that the most radical and divisive ideas in America, critical race theory, radical environmentalism, defund the police, Antifa, intersectionality, and more, either originated on college campuses or gained traction there. Universities, he says, have become incubators for activism. Instead of training students to think, they train them to agitate. Classroom theories spill into the streets, fueling protests, riots, and campaigns to tear down American institutions. He warns that ideas once confined to radical professors' offices are now mainstream, shaping politics, corporate policy, and even law. Kirk insists this isn't accidental. The pipeline of activism is intentional. Professors indoctrinate students, students graduate into activist roles in media and government, and the ideology spreads. He argues that America's cultural upheavals of recent years cannot be understood without recognizing their roots in campus culture. In this way, universities are not just irrelevant. They are weaponized against the very society that funds them. Chapter 10, The Professor Watchlist. Kirk devotes this chapter to exposing what he calls the ideological radicalism of professors themselves. He claims that many faculty members are not neutral educators, but activists determined to reshape students' worldviews. To prove his point, He highlights examples of professors who openly ridicule or punish students with opposing beliefs, incorporate activism into grading systems, or even advocate extreme political positions. Through his Professor Watchlist project, Kirk and his team document these cases. The stories range from professors encouraging anti-American rhetoric to those making hostile remarks about religion, capitalism, or conservative values. For many students, he argues, classrooms are no longer safe spaces for learning. They're battlegrounds where conformity is demanded and dissent is punished. Kirk's broader point is that professors are not isolated bad actors. They represent a culture of academia that rewards radicalism and discourages balance. By exposing them, he hopes to show parents and students just how hostile the academic environment has become. Chapter 11. Only in America. After the heavy critique, Kirk shifts perspective. He acknowledges that despite the flaws of the college system, America itself remains unique. Unlike many other countries, the United States still offers multiple pathways to success beyond the university track. He contrasts America's entrepreneurial spirit and openness with other nations where rigid credential systems dominate. He points to countless stories of entrepreneurs, tradespeople, inventors, and self-taught individuals who thrived without a degree. From tech founders to skilled tradesmen, he emphasizes that success in America depends less on credentials and more on initiative, creativity, and hard work. For Kirk, this chapter is about hope. The college system may be corrupt, but America still offers freedom and opportunity for those willing to take risks outside the traditional path. It's a reminder that the American dream is not tied to a diploma. It's tied to individual drive. Chapter 12. How to Succeed Without a Degree. Kirk ends his case with practical advice. If not college, then what? He outlines several alternative paths for young people to build successful, meaningful lives. Trade schools, apprenticeships, the military, entrepreneurship, online learning, and direct workforce entry are all presented as viable options. He emphasizes self-education, reading books, seeking mentors, and pursuing practical skills, as often more effective than classroom lectures. He encourages students to ask themselves what they truly want in life before committing to 4 years of expensive schooling. For many, he argues, the answer will be found not in lecture halls, but in real-world experiences. Kirk also stresses the importance of discipline, responsibility, and resilience. He argues that these traits, more than any degree, determine long-term success. By cultivating them early and refusing to be trapped by the college scam, young people can build futures that are both fulfilling and financially secure. This chapter is ultimately about empowerment. Kirk wants readers to leave with the conviction that they are not doomed without a diploma. In fact, for the vast majority, life may be better without one. Kirk concludes with a call to action. It's not enough to simply recognize the college scam. We must act to dismantle it. For parents, that means rethinking the assumption that college is the only path. For students, it means asking, why should I go to college, instead of where should I go? And for society, it means demanding accountability and change in how education is funded and valued. His message is ultimately one of empowerment. The future belongs to those who are willing to think critically, work hard, and refuse to be trapped by a broken system. So, is college truly the path to success, or one of the biggest scams in modern America? Charlie Kirk's The College Scam makes a strong case that for most students, it's the latter. But the bigger question is, what will you do with this information? Will you blindly follow the path laid out by society, or will you carve your own? The choice, as always, is yours.